Live from Schorr Manor Studios, this is Tales from a Small Town Journalist with Matt Schorr.
Hi guys, thanks for checking out this episode of Tales from a Small Town Journalist, the podcast dedicated to all the weird and wonderful stories you're only going to hear about from reporters working in small communities just like yours. Normally that intro is a bit longer. I'll tell you guys how you can show some support, both financial and moral, but not going to do that today. This is a unique episode because we're in the middle of a really unique time. Speaking of weird. Right now, in the midst of quarantine, with the coronavirus pretty much running rampant across the country right now, I'm not even going to suggest what the numbers are in my area as I record this, because they go up every day, just as they do everywhere else, it seems. It's a combination of things. It's scary and boring, because when you read the news and see what's going on out there, that's kind of frightening. It's frightening to see these numbers going up. It's frightening to see what it's doing to us. It's frightening to see the economy hurting. It's frightening to see people losing their jobs. It's scary to see what's going on all over the planet. And then at the same time, because we've quarantined ourselves, our life is our house. It's not a tiny house at all, but it's not exactly a big one either. But this is our life. Morning, noon, evening. Our house. That's really it. The only way we break up the monotony is we decided once a day we'll get in the car and take a drive. We don't go anywhere. We just get out and drive just to get out and try to combat the cabin fever that we're dealing with. This is originally supposed to be the Trans World recap. As some of you may know, I gave Amanda tickets to the Trans World Halloween and Attraction show in St. Louis for Valentine's Day. It's become a bit of a tradition for us right now, but unfortunately, Trans World was canceled. They held out for a while, saying they were going to monitor the situation and encourage everybody to practice good hygiene, wash their hands, all that sort of thing. And I appreciated the optimism, but, as you see other events canceling, the NHL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, the NCAA tournament, these are big, big things that just up and canceled. So the idea that this single event was going to be the lone holdout, that was a long shot. And truth be told, I wasn't sure if we really would have gone, given the way things were going. So it was the right decision on their part. Somebody once said that any decision made with people's well-being in mind, that's always the right decision. And that holds true here. Canceling that event in favor of making sure that we don't further the spread of this disease, that was a good decision. So I wholeheartedly support it. Not going to pretend I wasn't disappointed. We both were. We were very disappointed. But that's the situation that we're in. And with that in mind, I would like to, for anybody out there listening, take this serious. This is a very serious thing right now. Don't panic. That's not the way to go. Don't assume the sky is falling and the world's going to come to an end. But take this serious for what it is. There are people that I see trying to downplay it, which is troubling. I see people both in positions of leadership, elected officials. I see public figures all the way down the line, religious leaders, in fact, sometimes even downplaying what this situation is and that it's no worse than something else like the flu or whatever. And it's significantly worse. The mortality rates for COVID-19 significantly higher than that of the flu. So take this serious, stay safe. Stay home if you can, and all the important hygiene stuff. Wash your hands, wash them thoroughly. Speaking of washing your hands, I have this month started doing something I never considered doing, using moisturizer on my hands because I've washed them so much that they're starting to dry out and get all red and scaly. And I actually asked Amanda, what's going on with my hands here? And he said, you're washing them too much. You've got to use some moisturizer if you're going to wash them as much as you are. So it's a new experience for me, regularly moisturizing my hands with lotion. I do think it's important to thank the people that are on the front lines with this thing. One group that, of course, I am going to spotlight that get kind of underappreciated in all of this is journalists. Because they are out there in a sense. They're out there getting the information and relaying it back to us. Today we're able to work remotely a lot, and I'm sure a lot of them are doing that. But there are occasions where they do have to go out and find out what's going on and relay that information back to us. So show some appreciation to them for doing that. That's no small thing that they're doing. And of course, others on the front line, doctors, nurses, clinicians, they're right out there, really on the front lines, in the trenches with this thing. And we do not want to diminish their efforts in this, so thank you to all of them. And another group of people that we have learned a newfound respect for. It's a shame that it took a crisis to do this, but if there's any good in this, I'm certainly glad that that's happened. Grocery store workers, truck drivers, pharmacy workers, postal workers. So many people in these industries that all too often kind of overlooked. But in the face of this right now, we're realizing exactly how important and vital those people are to our infrastructure. Let me just offer up my thanks for the work that you do. Stay safe. Practice all the good hygiene. If you have to wash your hands to the point that you use a moisturizer like me, then do it. We need you here. So this being a slightly different episode, and since I had to throw out my original plans, I thought I would tell you some tales from this particular small-town journalist, myself, my own quarantine experiences. Some of them are funny, some of them are scary, and maybe you'll laugh and smile along with me as I tell you these stories. So this first story happened around the beginning of the whole coronavirus thing. I don't know any better way to put it. And it was, frankly, it was kind of scary. I'm not going to lie. There were moments I felt some real bordered on actual terror as a parent. Because Callum woke up one morning feeling just a little bit warm. And he wasn't red hot or anything. He's just warmer than usual. I brought this up with Amanda, and she felt over his face, like she did this thing where she feels his cheeks and his forehead and just kept going along purposefully to annoy him until finally he just goes, "Off of me!" She said she thought he felt okay. Odds were he was just kind of warm from sleeping in a blanket all night. And this made sense because Callum, he has this weird habit. It's all or nothing with him when it comes to blankets. He either pushes them off completely and just sleeps completely exposed, or he will completely wrap himself up in a blanket, like head to toe, nothing uncovered, and by morning he'll look like a little pint-sized mummy. So I let it go that he was hot because he had done that morning, and it made sense that he would be that warm. But every time I checked him throughout the day, he was always just a little warmer than I liked. Now, on the other hand, he was as active as he had ever been. He ran all over the house like a squirrel hopped up on candy and soda. He squealed, he bounced, he screamed, he demanded Pop-Tarts every 30 minutes. And, if he was sick, he didn't know it. But around 4 p.m., that all really changed. We were watching some Disney cartoons, and he wrapped himself up in a blanket. And this time when I felt his head, it was like a furnace. And he crawled up in my lap, and within a minute or so, I started sweating just because of the heat that was just radiating off of him. And I asked him, are you okay? And he just, in the most exhausted voice, just said, "I'm tired." Now, like I said, this was early on and everything, so information was still coming in. I didn't know as much then as I do now. And for the most part, though, I had kept a pretty cool head. As news of COVID-19 was just filling up every aspect of our lives, I never panicked. I planned, I prepared, I talked with Amanda, we adjusted our lives. We tried to be smart, we showed actual concern, but we didn't panic. But in that moment, when I was feeling that heat just coming off of Callum and looking at his eyes that were just getting darker and his cheeks that were just getting redder, then I was scared because I knew one of the symptoms was fever. I now know that there are 3 that you have to have. You have to have fever, cough, and shortness of breath. All he had was fever, but it was a massive fever. He was just on fire. And I just started wondering, if I waited, how long did that mean the rest of us in the house were going to be exposed? And what kind of a toll would that take on him? And also, I wondered, and you can criticize me for worrying about this, or you can be mad at the healthcare industry for putting this in my head. But I couldn't help wondering, with some real fear, what in the world was this going to cost? Now, like I said, information was still just coming in, and we had just heard that some doctors' offices were asking patients to call before visiting. Now, as I write this, I know that our doctor's office is doing the same, but at that moment, I really wasn't sure. And so that's what I wrestled with that as well. It's like, do I take him? Do I call? Do I wait? What do I do? And I knew that they were going to close soon. And so I made a decision. And if it was the right decision, I'm honestly not positive. I'll let you guys decide. I told Amanda I was taking him. And she told me they close in 30 minutes. And she said, I don't care. I'm going. There was an old adage I used to hear from police officers when I was still working with newspapers full time. There was this quote they would say, 9 you're fine, 10 you're mine. And I had every intention of driving exactly 9 miles over the speed limit the entire way to that doctor's office to get there as fast as I possibly could without getting in trouble. Now the problem was I ended up behind like the one and only driver in all of Clarksville who refused to go even a single mile over the speed limit. And, as it happened, he was following the exact same route as me. I rode this poor guy's bumper for nearly 20 minutes, always looking for some way to get around him, but never finding it. This poor guy probably thought I was either just furious or absolutely insane. Maybe both. Finally, there was this one chance that presented itself where I could get around him, and boy did I take advantage of it. I squeezed onto the shoulder, wheeled right past him, and took the first turn, which just so happened to be the doctor's office parking lot, saving myself, maybe 3 seconds, if that. I never looked back at this poor guy, but he had to have directed some kind of an eye roll or a shake of the head or some colorful gesture with his middle finger in my direction, and I wouldn't have blamed him. I mean, I totally deserved it. But like I said, in that moment, I didn't care. So once I parked, I got Callum out, we rushed inside, and they got to him pretty quickly. The place was fairly empty. And when nurses got him in there and took his temperature, they recorded 102. And remember I said earlier I was getting scared. When I saw that temperature, then I got really scared. Because I had never seen a fever that high on him before. And I just started berating myself in my head, like, why didn't I come sooner? Why did I wait? Why didn't I just wheel around that guy in front of me and break traffic laws every chance I could get sooner than I did, faster than I did, just to buy whatever time I could have? Now, luckily, somewhere in the midst of all this self-loathing, the doctor arrived and checked him over, and they gave me the diagnosis, and it was ear infection. And I relaxed a little bit on myself. Not much, but a little bit. Now, they were worried about that fever, because that was pretty high, but they were confident that some antibiotics and Tylenol would fix that. And for the record, as I record this, Callum just took his last dose of antibiotics, and he is totally fine. And that was where I learned for the first time that you have to have all 3 of those symptoms together, because when they finished with the diagnosis and they gave him the prescription, I asked the doctor, how worried should I be about coronavirus with him? And she said, well, it's got to be all 3. At the time, we hadn't seen any cases within Montgomery County. Of course, at this point, we've seen several. But she said the key was, unless you have all 3 of those symptoms, it is not coronavirus. And in his case, it was true. It was a ear infection. And like I said, he's doing better. So there's a story that was rather frightening, at least for me. As you guys hear it, you might just be rolling your eyes at me, and that's fine. That's okay. But I got to tell you, when it was happening, right there in the middle of it, and especially driving behind that poor guy who would not go as fast as I liked, every second felt like an hour. And it was just real fear that I was feeling. Okay, so this next story isn't quite so scary. This one, hopefully a little bit funny. It's all about life in quarantine. And for those of you like us also living in quarantine, you can relate to this. Quarantine is boring. You wake up in the morning in your house, you spend the day in your house, maybe you watch a little bit of Netflix, maybe a little Disney Plus, you eat lunch, you eat dinner, then you go to bed. That's your life. That's that's everything. The days are all the same. Everything bleeds together. It's hard to know what day of the week it is because nothing ever changes. But for us, there have been a few bright spots. For instance, our daughter Rowan, who is now 10 months old, she finally started saying something other than Dada. She now says Bubba, and occasionally even Mama. Now this is a big deal for me because Amanda, from the moment Rowan started talking, she was quick to let me know that I'm the only one Rowan ever called for, especially whenever it came time to give her a bath or change her diaper. She'd always just say, she just wants her daddy. It almost became like a catchphrase for her. But not anymore. Which is great because now I can turn the tables on her. Case in point. One evening we were having dinner, and then Rowan just she leans over to the side of her high chair and then just unleashed this god-awful sound from her nether regions. It sounded like a tuba loaded up with water balloons. We all stopped talking, even Callum. Even Callum stopped talking, which is saying something. We just stared at her, just in shock that such an enormous and horrible noise could come from such a tiny little being. So Rowan, she had her hand deep in her mouth at this point because she started chewing on her fingers. She looked at all of us and grinned and giggled, and then she just cries out, "Ma, ma, 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 ma." Now, before Amanda could say anything, I pointed at her, then I pointed at Rowan, and I said, clearly, this girl just wants her mama to change her diaper. And Rowan pulls her fingers from her mouth and just bangs on the tray with both of her hands, and she just squeals again and goes, "Mama, mama." Now, Amanda couldn't argue, but she did make a point of really sneering at me, and to be fair, I completely deserved it. So she just sighs and says, "I guess she does, but next time it is so your turn." And I said, "I guess that'll be up to Ro." So then Ro squealed again and unleashed another horrible noise. I mean, this one, if possible, it actually sounded even wetter than the first one. Like someone took that tuba that was loaded up with water balloons and then just dumped in a few gallons of oatmeal. And then she just chirps out, "Mama!" So again, we're just shocked and just in absolute silence. And I feel this little tiny hand tugging on my arm. I look over and it's Callum trying to get my attention. And he just goes, "Daddy?" I said, "What's up, kiddo?" And he just looks at me with just totally serious eyes and just goes, "Rowan fart." I said, "Yes, she did. And then some." All right, and those are glimpses of what life has been like for us during the past few weeks. I actually shared both of those stories in my humor column for the Leaf Chronicle last month. So now people both in and out of Clarksville, Tennessee, know about what's going on in our lives during this quarantine. If you have any of your own stories you'd like to share with me, by all means, hit me up on social media, on Twitter or Facebook, wherever you're connected with me at. Let me know what's going on in your life as well, and maybe when this is all over, we can do a big recap about how we dealt with this thing, because it's unprecedented. I don't think there's ever been anything that we have really faced as a nation like this before. We've had epidemics in the past, we've had diseases that ran roughshod across us, but this is the first one that seems to have really hit on a global level the way that this one has. So above all, stay safe, stay smart, wash your hands, keep everything clean. Make sure that you pay close attention to what medical experts say. Don't listen to, don't listen to ideologues on television. Don't listen to mouthpieces on the radio. Don't listen to columnists, hurting myself with that one, but don't listen to columnists who think that they know better than physicians. Don't even listen to podcasters, okay? Follow up what I'm telling you and make sure medical experts agree with me. And if they don't, and they are definitely licensed medical experts, then toss what I'm telling you away and follow their advice. But make sure that you follow the advice of licensed, reputable medical experts in this time. It's so important that we stay safe, so important that we look out for each other right now. There are vulnerable populations who are depending on us to stay smart and keep this thing contained as best we can. So hopefully when the next episode comes out, the cases will be going down and we'll be able to maybe heave a little bit of a sigh of relief. But until then, stay smart. Thanks.